Welcome to Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima podcast, where we dive into real conversations that shape our professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Fatima Nash, and today we're exploring a topic that so many of us wrestle with, yet rarely discuss openly: imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt like you're not good enough, like your success is a result of luck, or that you don't truly deserve your accomplishments? You're not alone. Imposter syndrome impacts high achievers, leaders, professionals at all levels, and even the ones who seem to have it all together. In this episode, we'll break down what imposter syndrome is, how it sneaks into our mindset, and most importantly, how you can push back against it. Together, we'll share insights, stories, and actionable strategies to help you embrace your worth and own your success. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima podcast. I'm real excited, y'all, because my baby is here with me today. Miss Sydney Rogers. Let me tell you how we met. So Miss Sydney worked on a project with me a couple years back at my full-time gig. And I mean, look at her. I fell in love with her because she's cute as a button, but she was smart as shit. Her background is super, super impeccable, and I just love her. And so I wanted her to join us on our journey as we continue to learn and debunk those fraud feelings. So please, Sydney Rogers, please introduce yourself.
Okay, yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation today. My name is Sydney Rogers, and I am a first-gen Black American woman who attended University of Michigan, which is a PWI, for college. Navigating that experience academically, socially, and professionally has shaped so much of how I see the world today and how I've had to push through some feelings of self-doubt. So today I'm looking forward to diving into imposter syndrome and how it's shown up in my life and the ways I've learned to manage it.
Yes, thank you. See, that's why when I needed you for this mini series. So yeah, why don't we start by talking about what imposter syndrome means to you?
Okay. Imposter syndrome to me is that persistent feeling that you don't belong or that you're not good enough. And that at any moment people will find out that you're not as competent as they think. And I feel like it's this internalized doubt that makes you question your achievements or your worth or your abilities, even when I guess you have every reason to be confident. So yeah, I think for first-gen students and Black women in predominantly white spaces, imposter syndrome isn't just like a personal feeling. It's reinforced by some external factors, like being overestimated or underestimated, and having to work twice as hard to be taken seriously. So yeah, sorry.
Well, that's how we starting this thing off already strong. I'm loving that. So yes, I completely agree with that definition. And I went to college a long time ago, 25, 26 years ago now. And as a first generation, I was not only a first generation college student, but I also was a first generation high school graduate. So really, really pioneering the way for my future and my legacy that I want to that I didn't know that I wanted to leave, because now I got 2 kids post college. But I remember my senior year in high school, I was working at Target part-time, and a lot of my coworker friends were getting into big time schools like Spelman. And to me at the time, not knowing how big the academia space was, but even getting into Old Dominion University was out of my league as a senior in high school, because I did not prepare myself to go to college. So when I started hanging out with college-bound friends, I realized like, oh, I'm a little behind. And that I never thought about it that way before, because I was just going to community college for a year or two to figure it out. But when I started seeing my friends get prepared for a 4-year university and all the confidence they had, the support they had from their siblings and their family, their parents. I really, really, really struggled and really saw the gap, the educational gap that I had. And it gave me such imposter syndrome, so much so that I like changed my major 3 or 4 times. It took me like 6 years to graduate from college. I failed a lot of classes. Like I really struggled because I didn't feel like I belonged and I didn't know how to navigate. Did you experience some of that going in at first?
Yeah. First, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that experience. I know it can be difficult to talk about. And I resonate a lot with what you said. I do feel like being a first gen college student, high school student, pursuing any like new achievement for the first time as someone in your family can come with some unique kinds of pressures. I think it's not just about getting good grades, but it's about carrying your family's hopes, their expectations,
That
and
part.
like sacrifices all on your back. So
Mhm.
navigating systems that nobody in your like immediate space or circle has experience with, like from financial aid forms to even networking events, can be difficult, like a daunting task.
Mhm.
And for me,
Mhm.
this meant like figuring out how to advocate for myself. So whether that was asking professors for help or seeking out mentors or finding spaces where I could be my authentic self. Um, and it also meant like dealing with guilt and feeling like I was leaving my family behind or that I had to make it so that all their sacrifices weren't like in vain. And that kind of pressure can also fuel imposter syndrome because, many mistakes feel like failures, but we're learning to
Yes,
reframe.
we are, and we are getting healed too, right? Like you are healing me, right? Like you started healing me when we met on that project, and I'm hoping I'm healing you along the way too. But
Absolutely.
but also we have gotten outside help, when it comes to this. Like I know my therapist, I can't live without her. She really helps me regulate my fraud feelings because I need someone that's objective, right? That I respect to say, whoa, 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 whoa. Like you're overthinking. That is not what took place. Your mind is going wild. One thing I want to pick back up that I have a funny story on that you sparked for me, the FASFA documentation. So when I asked my mom for her social security number for a FAFSA document, you would have thought that I asked her for her firstborn. Like you would have thought that I had a gun to her head. It was the most, I don't know if you can relate to that, but it was the most uncomfortable, crazy ass conversation because I'm thinking that this is normal. I ain't never been through this before, but our people and our parents are the same age, around about the same age. They come from a time where you don't be giving out my information and you giving it to the government. What they gonna do with it? What they gonna find out about me? It was like she didn't call the auntie. She didn't tell everybody. Well, this girl thinks she getting my social security. What did she? Like it was awful getting her to even buy into the fact that I needed her help to complete this document.
Yeah, I think it's intimidating and it's a foreign experience for those who have never like even heard about like giving out their social security numbers. Like if it's not related to taxes, like why do you need this information?
Right. Right.
Which I
Yeah, it
can
was awful.
understand.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I couldn't understand now, but at that time, I was like, are you trying to hold me back? Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is important. And we got into a big fight about it. That was that. Thank you for that reminder. Um, let's talk about the sacrifices and the weight of those who have sacrificed for us and how that plays a part in our imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Okay. Sacrifices and how that weight plays a part when focusing or performing and trying to navigate life
Trying to
and
live? Yeah.
trying to live. Um, I can think about like my experience in college, with imposter syndrome, or even in the workplace. Do you have a
Mhm.
preference on which I should speak on?
I just want you to just speak, girl.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about where we met. So
Yeah.
when I started my first corporate job, Honestly, I feel like after the first week, I felt like I had to prove myself every single day.
Mhm.
And I remember being in a meeting where I think we were brainstorming ideas for a project that we were working on,
Mhm.
and I had a solid suggestion.
Mhm.
But I did hesitate to speak up. I kept thinking
Mhm.
like, what if it's not good enough? What if what I have to say sounds silly or it's not valuable or if I just completely don't understand
Mhm.
anything that's going on?
Mhm.
And what if they realize that I don't really know what I'm doing or what I'm talking
Mhm.
about? And
Mhm.
eventually someone else made a similar suggestion and it was received with enthusiasm. And that moment taught me a hard but valuable lesson, which is doubting yourself doesn't just hold you back. It lets other people take up space that you rightfully deserve. And after that, I just tried and am still trying to force myself to speak up. But even when I'm nervous, but I do have to frequently remind myself that, I was hired for a reason and that my voice matters. And I think about the sacrifices that my mom made. Not being, even to this day, trying to still pursue her degree in her, what is it? It's the one that starts with an A, her
Associates.
associate's degree.
Mhm.
And I think about all of the efforts that she took to like get me to where I am today through college and to this corporate space, which she doesn't have experience in either.
Mhm.
And I thought about how that like she like we mentioned sacrifices. And while she couldn't necessarily help me, I can't like fumble the bag here in this corporate space. I gotta keep going no matter what. And even if she can't offer me advice from this exact perspective or experiencing this point of view from her experiences, I guess, she still like fought a lot. So I feel like it it's humbling and it's also like encouraging and motivating
Yeah.
in a sense. Well,
Yeah. I mean, shout out to our parents, right? Like, I give my parents a lot of grief, trust, but I do want to take a moment to celebrate them because imagine if we have imposter syndrome in this day and age with our credentials. Imagine the parents who don't have our credentials and what they had to go through to raise us to get us to this point. The amount of pushing down of the feelings that my mom had to do in dealing with me and my big personality, my attitude, my strength, and my drive, I'm sure she questioned herself quite a bit. So shout out to those who paved the way for us to be here today. I appreciate that, right? Because they were only doing the best they could with what they've gotten, just like we're only trying to do the best we can with what we got. And so you
absolutely.
gotta appreciate that. Yeah. Shout out to
It
the
is.
moms. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about um being in corporate America as a young Black woman. Um and feeling like, right? Because you made a statement that was very powerful. You have to work harder than. And my feeling on that has changed, and you can challenge me. I invite you to challenge me. I, by nature of who I am, outside of the color of my skin, I'm always above average no matter what I do, no matter where I'm at. So that's just going to shine naturally. So I don't have to try because I will be better because that's just who I am. But I don't have to. I no longer feel like I have to prove and that I have to work twice as hard because my successes to this point has already shown that. And so that's what I lean on. I lean on that confidence. But I also have a few years on you, so I have a little bit more experience and time in the space. But talk to me about that. Talk to me about why you feel like you have to work twice as hard. I mean, girl, do you know what your background says? Like, do you know
I
what your
mean,
credentials say about you?
we can get into it. We can talk about it.
Let's go.
I feel like trying to think. Frequently, I do second guess myself a lot and quickly referring back to sacrifices. I think sometimes growing up, I realized I wasn't taught a lot about confidence and how to believe in myself and how to validate myself when other people necessarily weren't validating me. And I think that is still something I'm overcoming because like the people who were supposed to be teaching me that were working just so I could eventually be where I am today. So I don't fault them at all. But I think it's something I now have to like teach myself. And I think, that's the thing about imposter syndrome. It makes you internalize the idea that you're not enough, or even when all the evidence says otherwise. So I think questioning myself, like, am I actually as smart as I thought I was, is kind of like the negative self-talk that I have to overcome. But I also find it like motivating for me to have to go above and beyond. I do, I think statistically, that's just where things stand as it is today. Like we do have to go above and beyond, do more than, work harder than, to get the promotions, to get the raises, to be recognized, to be acknowledged. I do think I can still do a better job of like finding that balance in the sense of like not like working hard and playing hard and not just working hard till I burn myself to the bone. But I think that'll definitely be easier as I work to overcome imposter syndrome.
I agree. So I think that it doesn't matter where you are, where you start, where you finish. Everyone's going to have self-doubt and everyone's going to struggle with that. But what I want to focus on and kind of go deep on is the origin of where you're supposed to get your confidence from. And so, in the world that we grew up in, and our culture, and for our listeners' sake, you and I have had these conversations. We didn't know they'd be recorded one day, but we've had these conversations many a day, right? So we're very comfortable in this space. But the persons that was supposed to be able to feed our young minds with confidence about our future, they were in survival mode about their present. They couldn't focus on pouring the future corporate Sydney, baking all of that when they just needed to make sure the basic needs were being met. And so when you live in a part of society where you're struggling to make basic things happen for your family, the mental obedience, governance, nurturing, all of that is a nice to have. In our community, if you focus on your mental state, that is a very white thing to do. In our community, that's laughed at. What do you mean you can do it? You're confident, just go do it. What's the problem? Why are you thinking about that? And so to me, because I'm extremely an empath, I feel everybody's feelings all the time, all the emotions. I stress myself out. I didn't come home and tell my dad that I was having imposter syndrome. I mean, first of all, I didn't even know what that term was, but I didn't go tell my dad that I was nervous or scared because he would look at me like, girl, don't you know that I just got finished working all these hours? I ain't got time for that. You got clothes on your back. You know you can do it. There's food in your belly. Go. And so I didn't grow up in a world that way. And so now, advance my life, 30 some years since I had that conversation with him, I recognize that because they were trying to survive, there were key things that were basic table stakes for other families and other economic statuses that I didn't get to take advantage of because they had different conversations at the table, because they had a table, because they ate dinner together. Like there's a whole list of things, right? I didn't grow up like that.
Block it.
So yeah, I'm making mistake number 101 in a podcast when the host is doing all the talking. So I'm gonna turn it back over to you and get your thoughts on that. But I think that if our parents had what they needed to have from a society perspective, from an equality perspective, I think, I would hope that they would have been able to see those gaps and be able to pour into us differently.
I agree. I think what you shared kind of hit it on the nose. They couldn't focus on future us because they're too worried about the present and making sure the current needs at the time were handled. And I think we could spend so much time like pointing fingers, figuring out who to blame, but I think it's more important and beneficial to like figure out like obviously like how to move forward because there's no book on parenting or guardianship. Nobody can tell you how to do it. And I hope like you take your experiences and what you learn and pour it into your little boys. Well, they're not little no more.
I know, right?
um, but ultimately, you're I think also you're always gonna get like criticism after they grow
Sure,
up, some sort of feedback on like
sure. I
what
know it's
you've done
coming.
wrong, what could have been improved. But ultimately at the end of the day, what what you will be able to tell them was you had a roof over your head, you had a table to eat on. So, and now we can figure out how to move forward as long as like you feel confident. Like I can remind you, even if I couldn't tell you then, I can remind you now that you are worthy, you are smart. What's that movie? You was smart, you was
You
kind,
was
you was
kind.
lovely.
I forget what the pie, Viola Davis and this pie
Yeah, yeah,
situation. I
yeah.
can't remember that. Yes, but yes,
I'm a
yes,
little
yes,
white
yes.
girl.
Yeah,
But
you is kind, you is yeah, you is
yeah.
smart. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And I think that like you can acknowledge it, but don't let it define you, right?
Right.
You can acknowledge that experience happened, but that experience does not have to be who you are. So when
Hmm.
it comes to like imposter syndrome and having those feelings of self-doubt, our parents did the best that they could. I
They
acknowledge
did.
that,
Absolutely.
and I can move forward knowing that they've given me the opportunity to do even better than that now for my future family. I don't have a
Yes. Oh my God. Speaking of future family, right? So I was in my therapy session
Mhm.
with my therapist last week, and like I had such an aha moment that I'd never had before. Like it was like out of body experience. So she is very passionate and she just was going on a roll about like all the ways I'm effed up and how I need to fix my shit, which is exactly how I should be talked to in that space, but only in that safe space, right? So she's just
Mhm.
going in and she's very passionate. And she was like, if you don't fix this, you're going to F up future Nashes. And I was like, oh shit. And she was like, and you by you fixing this, it fixes the previous situations too. And I'm like, oh shit. So what you saying is if I change today, I can impact my kids. If I take a minute and smell my roses and recognize that I'm meant to be here, I'm teaching them that they're meant to be here and I'm giving them those tools so they can give those to their kids and their kids and it can continue to go on. And that wasn't like, if that doesn't shake me out of my imposter syndrome sickness, I don't know what will, because I cannot have my children going through this shit that I'm going through at 45 years old. There's no fucking way possible. It is murder.
Right.
It is second guessing if I should even be here doing a podcast. Like that's what I go through. Like, should I even do this? I don't really know. Am I valuable? Like, it's it's a race in your brain.
Shout out to your therapist. I think clocked it yet again. Clocked the
I
T.
know.
I think
Amazing.
it's all about like reframing your perspective, shifting from like I'm a victim, like this happened to me, to being the like conqueror mentality. I think instead of thinking, I hate like this happened to me, like I'll never be able to believe in myself, I'll never have confidence, and it's only gonna feed that imposter syndrome, to thinking
Mhm.
like I said, this happened to me, but it doesn't define me. I'm meant to be here. I do
Mhm.
belong here. I
Mhm.
have the abilities, the tools, the resources now, even if I didn't or my parents didn't then, to figure out how to move forward now, to fix it now, to help future generations
Mhm.
not experience what I'm experiencing.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh my
So,
God, I love that. So one other thing I want to throw out that I didn't prepare you for because, I always got a trick up my sleeve.
her.
So
Okay.
what about imposter syndrome in the Black girlfriend mode? So I've been thinking that imposter syndrome shows up everywhere we show up. And in our world, sometimes we can have a little bit of fear of missing out. And sometimes we can pull down those who are trying to uplift themselves, trying to grow from a situation, because we feel like we're imposters. So we assume that you're my girl, you're an imposter too. So you can't do that. You shouldn't be able to do that. Does that show up for you in your world at all?
Mm, I heard you say imposter syndrome shows up in any space or any environment. And we're particularly talking about like friendships,
Mm-hmm.
and encouragement or lack thereof, feeling like our imposter syndrome and somebody who has a shared experience with me most likely is an imposter as well. I don't know that I have any experiences like that. I feel like but this is just a personal thing.
Yeah.
I try not to project my feelings onto other people. And the way that I just operate as a like my character, I think, or
Mm-hmm.
just my like innate
Mm-hmm.
characteristics rather are
Mm-hmm.
to be encouraging and
Mm-hmm.
uplifting.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I'm in a negative space, sometimes I will complain, but I can't I believe that words hold value. There's power in the tongue, and I refuse to speak that over anybody that's in my immediate circle. Um
I love that.
yeah.
I love that. I have not always had that experience, and I've been the bad girl in some of these situations where I feel like I'm such an imposter and I don't belong here. So if you're going to go do something that I want to do, I'm even more second guessing us because, hey, we can't do that. You can't do that. We can't be successful here. Why would you try that? And I would pull people back and say, no, 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 we shouldn't go that route. Well, that's their own life, but I was deflecting my insecurity and lack
Mhm.
of experience. And that damaged a lot of my relationships when I was younger. And so I'm glad that that symptom of imposter syndrome you did not experience because it's not nice. Like I wasn't being my best Fatima, but I struggled with that, especially as a first generation college student, because I went eventually after I went to community college for like a year, I transferred to Virginia Commonwealth University and studied communications here in Richmond. And I was in a bigger city and there were a lot of different people from all walks of life. And I struggled. Like I struggled big time because I didn't know who I was and I didn't know where I belong. And so when I thought I found a group that I belong with and they maybe were more confident or, more whatever than I was, I think I damaged some of those relationships by hating on them for them not having imposter syndrome in some cases. And so those are just some things that I've learned that I don't want anyone else to go through. So anyone out there listening, you can beat your imposter syndrome by embracing community and loving your community, and your community will love you back. And you can hang out with them even when you're nervous. You don't have to put other people down or put your stuff on someone else's shoulders for them to carry. So, um, all right.
Mhm.
Last words, Miss
Yeah.
Rogers. Imposter
Okay.
syndrome, fraud feelings.
Yeah. Period. Let's talk about it. I think what you just shared, finding community, that is something that I felt was very valuable for me. Because we can be our own worst critic. Me particularly, I think I'm more hard on myself. Sometimes
Sure.
it translates to me being harder on people, but more often than not, I'm try to be encouraging. And in turn, feel like it's important to surround yourself with people who understand your experience and can remind you that you belong. So whether it's a
That's right.
mentor, a friend, a group of friends, or like affinity groups or like plus ones, I guess, having a support
Mhm.
system, it makes all the difference. They can pour into you. And
Mhm.
in turn, you can pour right back into them. Just
Mhm.
reframe your perspective. Instead of thinking like I don't belong here, you can shift to I am meant to be here. And I bring
Mhm.
something valuable to the table, especially with my experiences. Every space I enter, like I try to remind myself that I am a contributor and not just an observer.
That's right. I'm so proud of you. I'm
Thank
so proud of you. I love to watch you grow. I miss you. I cried when we had a work breakup where you had to go someplace else than I had to go. It was really tough because, and I'm probably gonna need some Kleenex. I can feel it. But you held me accountable and you helped me recognize when I was being an imposter and you were looking at me not to do that. So you made me stronger, you made me better. And so just really appreciate you being in my life. And I thank you very, very much. So with that said, I think that's a good way to wrap up today's episode of Fraudulent Feelings, first generation college student with Sydney Rogers and Fatima Nash. Thank you all for listening and tuning in. Sydney, will you come back?
Absolutely. I'll be back. Just call me.
I will. All right, y'all. Until next time. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Wow. Talking about going back to the future and revisiting your younger self, wowzer. And how those experiences show up in the workplace. Whew, we're really cooking now, friends. Please tune in to episode 4, Imposter CEO, where Cindy Manuel, CEO of the Delta Principles, takes us through the CEO imposter question. What are you thinking? What are people going to say? Do the voices quiet down? Damn, did I do that? Please don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon.